Hey guys, it's me, Seren, back with another video. So this video is going to be on nostalgia. Those of you that have been following me for a long time, I'm sure you guys know how I feel about nostalgia. I'm not really on board with the reboots, remakes, nostalgia sort of craze, the sequels. They've announced that they're coming out with like a Zombieland sequel, even though it's been like 10 years. Incredibles 2 sequel after like 15 years, which I didn't even like. I wasn't even impressed by the Incredibles 2. You know, we have Toy Story 4, and we have a Child's Play reboot, and they recently have revealed that they want to do a Kid and Play remake, House Party, sorry, they want to do a House Party remake. They've said that they want to do a remake of The Crafts. Issa Rae was recently talking about that. She wants to produce and star in a remake of Set It Off. And it's just like, originality is dead. Creativity is dead. I feel like I've been talking about this for a long time, but I haven't done, we've talked about it a lot during like Bees Bake and during like some live streams, and it's been touched upon with like other videos, but I haven't done a dedicated video on like nostalgia and how I feel about it right now and how I feel like it's impacting creativity. I have some other videos where I'm going to touch on it that I haven't uploaded yet, but I wanted to make this one to just say, like, I am so tired of reboots, remakes, re-ups, redowns, sequels, prequels, like everything to me, it's really like a death of originality and a death of creativity. And we've talked about this a few times on Instagram. There are some comments and some commentary that I'm going to read to you guys a little bit later on. But you guys know that like I personally am not a fan of Jordan Peele. I have a few videos on Us and Get Out and how I feel about a lot of his directing and his filmmaking and a lot of issues I have with his casting choices. But something that I do feel like one of the main reasons why I feel like people gravitate towards Jordan Peele is because Jordan Peele is creating original content and people are starving for original content. But it's like the fact that he was only even able to like get funding for his original content because he already, you know, was a part of Key and Peele, which was really, really successful. But for a lot of like new filmmakers and for a lot of people starting to build a buzz, and it seems like the way to go right now is to remake a previous property that was popular in the past. You have a lot of studios that they don't want to take a chance on, especially when we're talking about black creatives, black art, black cinema, movies, books, TV shows, and the like. People don't want to take a chance on new talent. People don't want to take a chance on original stories. I feel like from a monetary standpoint, capitalism is the fucking devil. It ruins everything. So from a capitalist standpoint, essentially you have these, you know, I'll call them funders, right? Like, so the people that fund projects, the funders, the studio heads, the executives, the heads of labels and all these things that they say, well, we already have a property that has been popular in the past that's made a ton of money. So fiscally, right, like financially, it makes the most sense for us to go with that property again. It has a built-in fan base. You know, we already have like the goodwill of the people that love the previous work. So let's just try to recapture lightning in a bottle, slap a bow on it, you know, make it all bright and shiny and new again for like a quote unquote new audience. Disney with these like rollouts of these like live actions, they're just clear cash grabs, money grabs from people that don't want to put backing behind original content. And I think that it's an issue overall across the board in entertainment and in the arts, but I think that it's even compounded when you start throwing in race, when you start throwing in black artistry, as well as when you start throwing in ethnicity and nationality, when we're talking about like black Americans that are creating and are creatives. It's just like very much this sense of like not wanting to take a chance on an original project. And I just feel like it is the death of creativity. It's the death of creativity. It's the death of originality. Of course, you do still have independent works. You do still have people that are creating things under the radar, people that are creating things online, digital content, shows and series and movies and things of that nature. But when it comes to the things that are getting mainstream backing and support, it's these reboots and these fucking remakes and these sequels. And I'm just so bored of it and so tired of it. And the movies don't even be good. Like, the movies be trash. Like, the shows be trash. Like, I loved fucking the original Charm. Like, that was my show. And then you also have people that are fucking, shout outs to 10, that are identity pimping that they're like, well, the original Charmed was great, a cult classic, it has a built-in fan base, but now the quote-unquote like diversity shit is hot, the identity shit is hot, so we're gonna make a subpar fucking remake of Charmed, but we're gonna use quote-unquote women of color, you guys know how I feel about that terminology, in order to capitalize off of this like identity movement that's hot right now, you know, like identity pimping, right? That's really what that shit is, like pimping out identities for money, for attention, for capital, for clout. I feel like Issa Rae does that same exact thing, identity pimping, which I've talked about in other videos. I feel like Donald Glover does the exact same thing, identity pimping, which I've talked about in other videos. Again, pimping out of an identity for money, for a career, for attention, for clout, not even for artistry, not even for creation or for self-expression, but for these like really purely sort of selfish reasons. And it's just, again, it's like very stifling. It's very stifling. I feel, and I love film. You guys know I love film. I love cinema. I feel so stifled. Like, I didn't even see It 2. It itself is a fucking remake. A sequel of a remake of a sequel of a remake of a sequel of a remake, signed to another nigga, signed to another nigga, signed to another nigga, signed to another nigga. Like, I'm so tired. I'm so tired. Which is part of why I started doing like my own content with the Black Americans and working on more content moving forward, because it's just like everything is so fucking boring. And then when you even again start getting into with Black films and Black art and Black shows and Black cinema in particular, I think you also have a lot of people that, which we've talked about before, have realized that especially the Black American experience, it's a way to get awards, it's a way to get, again, attention, it's a way to get some clout, it's a way to get some capital, it's a way to get your project up off the ground. And so you have a lot of people that are trying to like tap into this, and again, trying to sort of tap into this pre-existing, you know, cultural zeitgeist of something like a Set It Off, right? Which is a cultural classic, like it's a cult classic, right? Oh, well, I want to like tap into that. But instead of even making something new and paying homage to it, like, why do you have to just totally remake it and recast it in your image and like insert yourself into it? Again, we were talking about this on Instagram, and somebody made the wonderful point of saying it's like instead of being inspired by the people that came before them, people are trying to like rewrite history and like take their place within the cultural zeitgeist, right? Like, I'm gonna do cosplay of like my favorite shit. I'm not going to be inspired by it and create something new. I'm just going to do like cosplay of my favorite shit and just like remake the shit in my fucking image so that like I can take that place. Like I can like leapfrog into the cultural canon, right? Like I don't really want to put in like the work to create my own stuff, so my own stuff can be its own classics that like stand the test of time. I want to utilize the greatness of the greats that came before me and the work that came before me to sort of leapfrog my way into the cultural canon, which is cheating. It's cheating, and it's not original, and it's not creative, and it's boring as fuck, and it's actually disrespectful to our classics, our classic cinema, our classic shows. It's just like everything doesn't need a remake, a reboot, a sequel. Everything doesn't need it. I would even say most things don't need it. We can still go back, even getting into like, you know, the Whitney Houston hologram, you know, like we can still go back and like watch the old movies. We can still go back and watch the old shows. We can still go back and watch the old performances. We can give our artists their flowers while they are still alive. Like motherfucking Vivica Fox and Jada Pinkett, you know, Queen Latifah, they Kimberly Elise, they all came out and said that they're not in favor of doing a reboot, a remake, or a sequel. And these are also actors that are still alive, that can still receive their flowers. You know, they're still here. And it's just very disrespectful also to feel like you can remake it and sort of like take the place of that. It's, you know, you got, again, on Instagram, Twitter, it's like you gotta have some big ass balls to even think that you can attempt something like this. And I feel like if you have all of this, these fucking big ass balls, and you have all this fucking creative clout behind you, you have all this money, you have all this funding behind you, somebody like an Issa Rae does have that now, create something new. Like, why is it like so, why is everything you do so adjacent to shit that already pre-exists? Like, where's your originality? Like, where are your creative ideas? Like, you do a 90s themed photo shoots, and I just, you know, like, I don't know. I have, like, again, and a part of me, again, does understand. And people were also bringing up the point of, like, you also have a lot of our Black American classics that are being remade in the image of, again, non-descendants of American chattel slavery, right? Like the girl that they cast to be in this remake of The Craft is going to be like an African girl, even though like in the original one it's Rachel True, who is like a Black American. So a lot of people have also been saying like it's part of this concentrated effort to sort of like remake shit in somebody else's image and erase us from history, in addition to, again, it just being a clear money grab and having a lack of faith in creativity and in original concepts, and feeling like we're just going to sink our money and our resources into shit that already came before because it's easy. It's an easy cash grab. It's an easy way for us to get some acclaim. It's an easy way for us to get some awards. It's an easy way for us to get some attention. And it's an easy way for us to sort of propel ourselves and leapfrog into the cultural canon without having to do any work. And I'm so sick of it. I said like 2 or 3 years ago, I was like, I'm not with the nostalgia, y'all. Like, everything don't need to be a remake. Everything don't need to be a reboot. Everything don't need to be a sequel. And niggas was like, Seren, you hating. Like, I think the sequels are fun. Like, I think this needs a sequel. I think that needs a sequel. And now niggas are starting to suffer from, like, reboot, remake, sequel fatigue. Like, okay, can we get some original content? So it's just, I'm not with it. I've been not with it. We've been talking about this for a while, so I'm going to go ahead and read you guys some commentary. This is actually from 2 separate occasions. Now, we talked about this on Instagram. We talked about it recently, like last week, when the whole Set It Off thing came out, and we also talked about it back in April as well. So I'm going to get into some of those comments for you guys. This is what I put, and this was on Instagram, and this sort of popped off the conversation. I feel like if you're going to adapt a pre-existing property, there's so much stuff out there that has yet to be adapted, rather than continuously rehashing the same things over and over. The works of Baldwin that are recently being adapted are prime examples, like they did If Beale Street Could Talk, they did Native Son. There are whole novels by Toni Morrison, Zora Neale Hurston, and Octavia Butler just chilling. Meanwhile, y'all want to remake the same shit that was out 5 years ago. I, for one, am tired of the reboot, remake, sequel craze. And then some responses to those posts that I made were as follows. I agree with what people have said about it being a form of extreme escapism. For some reason today, I think it's especially extreme because of what's going on in our day-to-day. There are many facets of our lives undergoing big transitional phases artistically, socially, and politically, and the nostalgia craze could be a reflection of people's fear of confronting new ideas and abandoning old ones. That was from Luciano. Hi, Luciano. As someone who's big into genre things, I'm only here for reboots if the original work couldn't do what the creators wanted due to technical constraints, lack of creative freedom, or if they want to explore a different angle of the lore. For example, I love the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings trilogy, and I hate that they were doing the Amazon show. But if they were to do the Silmarillion or one of the original books, I'd be intrigued. It's fun to see things you read about or imagined on screen. And I think that's getting into, again, like there are other ways that we can sort of explore and move around in the canon without consistently remaking the same shit over and over. Peter Parker. Why have we had 3 live-action Peter Parkers? And we just got a Miles Morales movie last year, and it wasn't even live-action, it was animated. We can move around in the canon in different ways. I think people are just more naturally attracted to what's familiar to them. Me personally, I'd rather see new things and experience new takes on art, but I get it, I guess. I have that if it ain't broke, don't fix it mentality. Change isn't very pleasant to a lot of people, even if they need it. I hate the idea of reboots as well, especially when the original movie or series was well done, like don't touch it, geez. I feel like it's a part of this culture of not being creative enough, like damn, make something new, build your own classic. I'm just tired of it. Every generation needs to be responsible for their own creativity. Sure, you could be inspired, but don't go ripping everything off. Reboots are Hollywood's way of showing how they've run out of ideas and prefer using the same tired, mostly white filmmakers, producers, directors, and actors. They need to be trying to find new writers and the like who can make new stories. All this copying and pasting is getting really old. Leave classics the fuck alone. The reason people want reboots is because even though they say they want new things, they struggle to surrender the control of how and where those new things emerge. A lot of people have been bringing up how true change and creativity is scary. I feel like reboots are hella lazy, and like the majority of these projects have already been done before, they're literally copying, remaking something that already exists. I wish I could recycle school papers and projects and just erase a few things and add a little something. That's called plagiarism. Shit starting from scratch is a great way to develop ideas and storylines better. We also had this conversation recently on Instagram about music. I asked about Sweetie's My Type, which I feel like is exactly the same song as motherfucking Freak a League by P.D. Pablo. The melody is the same. The beat is the same. Everything is the same. And I was like, is that really her hit or is that P.D. Pablo's hit? I was like, if you copy exactly word for word a song, a movie, a book, in real life and in academia, that shit is considered plagiarism. But if you say, oh, it's a reboot, it's a remake, it's fine. I don't know. I regularly see commentary like, this needs a reboot, and I always wondered why. Why do people want reboots? I'm curious. It's very interesting to me that it's become almost an expectation. I like that thing, so let's reboot it. And I really wanted to, like, know what do people think is underneath, like, what is the heart of that? Like, I like that thing, so let's reboot it. Like, why? Why can't you just go watch the old thing? Why do you need, like, a new version of that thing that you already liked? It's not going to give you the same feeling, especially because, like, so many things contribute to our love of a thing, like where we're at in life, how old we are, the things that are going on for us. You know, it's like so many things that lead to the fond memories and the nostalgia. You can't just be like slap the name Boomerang on it and like automatically feel like you're gonna have that same exact feeling again. But I feel like that's what people think that they're gonna get. And when people started saying that they thought that a lot of it was due to sort of like the tumultuous nature of the times that we're in and people maybe wanting to go back to what they feel was like a safer, happier time, I was like, oh, now we're getting into like some emotional disturbances that people feel and that we are trying to kind of like temper that with the remake of things that we enjoyed in childhood. I was talking about this with my sister yesterday. For me, you should only do reboots when the first thing flopped or it can be better produced due to improved CGI or tech, etc. This whole feeling nostalgic, so we're just remaking past films and series is getting tired. I agree. I think it's a way to relive childhood or any good feelings that people had about the movies. I get it. People want to feel how they felt once before, but it is literally not possible. Honestly, the sequels and remakes ruin the nostalgia when we see the original shows and movies. You can never watch the originals the same. And I replied to this person, I said, I think I can watch the originals the same, especially if the remake is trash, but I get where you're coming from. It can cheapen things, right? Like it makes things a little bit cheaper. People have ran out of ideas, and the wild thing is I always get plenty of gems when I rewatch the originals. I feel like this current generation needs certain types of things like black love movies, romantic comedies that take an adult approach to career and the dynamics of concurrent dating and the like. Instead of new content, we're just looking into the 90s for remakes. There is generally too much content in media, not enough of it is new or creative or imaginative because the people making the decisions really shouldn't be because they themselves aren't actually creative or imaginative or talented. They are just the people with the money and the funds. They're not necessarily lazy, they're incapable and unqualified. I think part of it comes from that thing about like the 30-year pop culture cycle where social generations get super nostalgic for their childhoods and seek to recreate those things as adults. So with millennials, most of us are all adult aged in our early 20s to 30s, and just like how the 80s had a comeback in terms of aesthetics and stories with stuff like Stranger Things and it's getting to that point with those of us born in the late 80s and 90s and some early 2000s. Also, studios and stuff sort of know that people are into it and are scrambling to cater to that instead of really thinking about, do people actually want this for real, or are they having a moment? Great comment. I'm going to actually show you guys this one because it was really, 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 really good. I feel like there's a huge space for new content and entertainment, and if they're going to keep remaking movies, can we at least dig into the archives and stop remaking things that came out 10, 15, 20 years ago, stuff that came out in the 90s. Saw my neighbor. Stuff that came out in the 90s really ain't that old in the grand scheme of things. Will Smith is still alive and kicking and making movies himself. Seeing people they want a Fresh Prince reboot, for example, is a head scratcher. Instant microwave culture, which you guys are going to hear me talk about later on in some other videos. I agree with what you said about adapting novels by classic Black authors. I do think the entertainment industry as a whole is lazy creatively. It's wild because I'm happy to see more Black faces on the screen and behind, but most of the content is not that impressive, which I agree with. And I feel like a lot of Black consumers, as well as creatives, are sort of in this weird, sticky place of wanting to support more Black content, but at the same time being like, this motherfucking content is trash. I was thinking along these lines too, but more so that folks grew up and realized being an adult is a whole scam and society sucks, so we're trying to escape and relive our childhoods. It's happening in the gaming industry too. They're literally remastering PlayStation classics such as Spyro the Dragon, which I used to play. I played Spyro on PlayStation 1. Crash Bandicoot, Resident Evil 2 for the new system, so it's the same damn game with updated graphics to fit today's standard. And I replied to that person, I said, damn, I used to play the hell out of some Spyro. Being an adult is indeed a whole scam, but I don't need to relive my childhood by watching live action versions and reboots of all the shows and movies I enjoyed as a kid. As other people have said, there is still no way to truly recreate that feeling you had as a child. I'd rather just watch the old stuff and enjoy it for what it is and then get something new for now. I think some people don't realize that with nostalgia, you have that feeling specifically because of the time in which it was produced. If you watch Nickelodeon after getting home from grade school with the Capri Sun on the table, listen to your older siblings run through Jodeci, Casey, and JoJo and 112, you can't recalibrate that. The moments were pure, let them be. There is way, and they put a bunch of A's, too much material presently that is being neglected because of reboots, nostalgia-oriented productions. Yes, I have a burning hatred towards rebooting shit, even with this new Twilight Zone, which was done by Jordan Peele and which I did not watch because Twilight Zone is one of my favorite shows of all time, and I really felt like disrespected. It's funny because they want to tap into the pre-existing fan base with these reboots and stuff, but a lot of times the the fans of the old original content felt a little bit offended and disrespected. Like, I felt mad salty about, like, the Charm reboot. I felt mad salty about the Roswell reboot. I never watched not 1 minute because Roswell was, like, my first, like, stan experience as a child. Like, I felt very salty about, like, the Twilight Zone remake. Like, we already have Black Mirror, which is a perfect example of, like, I was inspired by the Twilight Zone, so I decided to, like, make something new in the same spirit. It didn't have to be Twilight Zone exactly. And I found that a little bit offensive. Like, leave it alone. I have a burning hatred towards rebooting shit, even with this new Twilight Zone, because the original 60s episodes are literally timeless classics that you can watch today, and they still have a lot of relevance. On top of that, the money being spent on rebooting everything can literally go to producing new works and bringing new ideas to the forefront. I never watch remakes because it's super annoying how much money and energy is spent rehashing everything. And this is actually what I said to the person. Like, I brought up Black Mirror, and I brought up again, what we've been talking about, I feel, for a long time is the difference between, inspiration and imitation. Are you inspired by, or are you imitating? Are you creating something that pays homage, or are you just literally recreating, rebooting, remaking, sequelizing? There's a difference. Somebody said about Issa doing Set It Off specifically, these films ain't broken, why fix it up with a bootleg remake for clout? If an artist likes another work of art so much, then they should create their own original version of what they love as a love letter to what inspired them. A lot of people are also bringing up that, like, the socio-political climate is different now, and so you have a lot of things that, again, sort of captured a cultural zeitgeist 20 or 30 years ago that wouldn't even work today. I feel like if you do a remake, you better do a damn good job. Like the 2016 Roots was a remake, but it was good. And you can tell they actually tried to put their own spin on it. And even though they had similar plots, it was almost like watching a different movie. And I agreed with that. I also feel like The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. It took me a long time to watch that because I loved the original and I felt some type of way about them redoing it. But that shit is like not even the same show. Like they have different characters. Like some of the characters are the same. Like Sabrina's in it and like her aunts and like Harvey. But like all the rest of the characters, the rest of the plot, it's very, 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 very different. So I do feel like you can put an original spin on things, but it's hard, and I don't see enough people actually doing that versus just copy pasting. Honestly, what happened to the days when movies just got re-released or anniversary editions? Why does everything have to be reimagined or retold? Is updating original movies' graphics and picture quality to fit newer TV models not enough anymore? I'm very sick of remakes and sequels, especially in the Black community. I want more Black sci-fi, fantasy, and folklore content. Give me that, please. I think Issa Rae has a fetish for anything she perceives as ghetto. To her, this movie is just an opportunity to do a ghetto 90s film, which I agreed. I talked about this a little bit in my video on Insecure. I agree with that. I also think that Issa Rae has a fetish for like sort of this ghetto, quote unquote, like Black American, her idea of like Black American culture, and especially as it relates to like the 90s and early 2000s. I think she likes like dressing up and cosplaying like, yeah, nigga, woo, 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 you know? And so I think she also, again, sees this as an opportunity to continue dressing up and playing dress-up culture with us. Originality is dead, it seems, and it also seems like at this point, they're just picking popularity and the it people. No one is respecting our classics with these questionable remakes, and they're just throwing them to anybody that has a hot name, which I agree when we start talking about, like, attention and clout and, like, utilizing our culture to just, like, sort of leapfrog into like awards and attention and clout and a cultural zeitgeist. I totally agree. It's like A Christmas Story, but we're just endlessly haunted by the ghosts of Black classics past. And that was Paul. Hi, Paul. And these are some more comments about Issa specifically doing Set It Off. Why doesn't she tap into her African culture and make something she actually knows? She literally has the funds and creative juices. Why can't she properly show us her Senegalese culture? But now she wants to recreate shit. She's going to try and put her Black American, descendant of American chattel slavery, Insecure spin on it. And she's also most likely going to be changing characters into whites. I'm calling it now. I don't understand why she's doing this. No one requested it, and it reminds me of gentrification. Now, I thought that was a very interesting comment. Somebody said, like, it's a gentrification. It's a gentrification of our culture. It's a gentrification of our classics. Again, the sort of remaking of a lot of our cult classics, our cultural classics from the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s in a way that can make them sort of more easy to swallow and palatable for a mainstream white audience, which is what somebody like Donald Glover is really good at, which is what somebody like Jordan Peele is really good at, which is what someone like Issa Rae is really good at. That's like a gentrification. It's a gentrification of our art, right? By people that might be skinfolk, but they not kinfolk. I think people are scared to make new shit because of fear that it would tank. People are hanging on to the past for dear life. You cannot replicate an Angela Bassett, a Vivica Fox, or a Queen Latifah. Never. Leave our Black icons and our Black works alone. This shit is revisionist as fuck. Again, revisionist history, gentrification, this thirst to sort of remake our Black American classics in another image. This thirst to remake your favorite artist's work is kind of single, white, female-ish. You gotta have some fucking monster-sized balls to even think you can touch these classics or do it better. I don't understand why people can't just put on a costume for Halloween and do a little scene for IGTV, live out the fantasy in that way. Don't remake something that is already fantastic. Leave it alone. That single white female line hit different, kind of like people are trying to be their favorite artist or just take their place in the lexicon. Make your own classics, like Girls Trip became its own modern classic. Black Panther became its own classic. Do your own thing. So that's how I feel about nostalgia. Really, really interesting topic. Again, we've been talking about this for a few months now, and I'm glad that I was able to finally film a full-length video on it. Let me know what you guys think. I know there are still people that love the reboots, like even in the in the comments for like the Set It Off thing, there were people that were like, oh, I would watch it, So let me know what you guys think. Are you with it? Are you not with it? What do you think about some of the commentary that people made and some of the things that I said in this video? I'm super interested to know. Food for thought as always. See you guys next time. Peace.